quick check, by the way. Was there an earthquake at 4:50 today?
I felt it.
It was a localized event in my bedroom, which is fine. But I just didn't know. There was an earthquake, right? Okay. Good. All right, before we start, first of all, can you all just give a huge bloody round of applause to Tony and Tara? What an amazing day. Seriously. What a great day. Like you, I've done a number of things in my life. I've been a writer. I was an entrepreneur. Sort of am an entrepreneur. Built a coaching and software company. Some of my team are right here. But I'm actually here not in those capacities. I'm here as a researcher. That's really what I'm here to talk about and share. Because as some of you know, I spent the first 17 or so years of my career at Gallup trying to measure things that are really hard to measure. So measure performance. How do you do that? As Tara said, almost all work these days is knowledge work. How do you measure that? How do you measure engagement? How do you measure strengths? How do you measure personality? So I spent 17 years doing that, and the last year joined the ADP Research Institute to continue to investigate in a database, as Tara says, a database-driven way. What is the world of work like? How do, in both meanings of this phrase, how do people work? That's what I'm super interested in, so that's what I imagine many of you are interested in, and that's what I want to share this morning. The basic approach that I take, I don't know what you take, but the basic approach that I take is what I would call a free-thinking approach to research, which means if you want to understand or study something, you look at it as it really is. If you want to understand what great leaders look like, you don't come in with preconceptions, you don't come in with theory, you don't come in with dogma, you just look at the thing as it really is. What do good leaders look like? If you want to understand what good leaders are, you should study good leaders. If you want to understand what good teachers are, you should study, without a pre-existing set of ideas, what good teachers really look like. That's what you should do, which, as I say it just sounds like a crashing glimpse of the obvious. Of course you would do that. And yet you look at what we actually do, and we actually take the opposite approach. We seem to believe that good is just the opposite of bad, and if you want to get good, you should just study bad and invert it. So in order to learn about health, we study disease. To learn about joy and meaning and wisdom in life, we study depression. In order to learn how to keep our employees super engaged, we do exit interviews and study the ones that leave. Everywhere you look, we seem to believe that good is just the opposite of bad. If you want good, you should study bad and invert it. No, if you study bad and invert it, you get not bad. and that's just different than good or great, isn't it? We can take a bunch of examples from the world of work, but let's not. Let's take an example from your personal lives. Let's take marriage. Let's take most marriage therapy is based on the idea that a good marriage is the opposite of a bad marriage. If you want a good marriage, study the really rotten marriages and then say, don't do that. And when you study the rotten marriages, although it turns out that every marriage is unhappy in its own way, I said that by mistake one time and nobody laughed except me. I thought that was funny. If you study the really rotten marriages, although every unhappy marriage is unhappy in its own way, if you study all the really unhappy marriages and relationships, it does turn out that they do have one thing in common. You didn't know you were going to learn this today. They have one thing in common. In all the really unhappy marriages, people argue a lot. I know. I was shocked too. But it's true. In all the really rotten marriages, people argue a lot. So, follow the logic. If good is just the opposite of bad, if you want a really good marriage or relationship, you should do the opposite of this. So in a really good marriage or relationship, don't fight. And yet, when you actually study the really good relationships, you really study it, and you count the fights. You ask the researchers there in their offices, and someone's like pinging them. Whenever you're fighting, count it, write it down, and you count the fights. It turns out there is no statistically significant difference between the number of fights in a really good marriage and the number of fights in a rotten marriage. It turns out that the difference between a great relationship and a rotten one isn't the number of fights. It turns out that the difference is what happens in the space between the fights. And in a rotten relationship, it turns out that you become more and more unsafe, more vulnerable in the space between the fights, and you reach back and back and physically and psychologically until one day you wake up and you're separated. And in a really good relationship, somehow you use the space between the fights. And fights are okay, but in the space between the fights, you use it because you feel safe. You use it to reach toward one another, so the fights are actually a way for you to reconnect. Now, I don't know what it is that draws two people back together in the space between the fights. That's a different presentation for much, much later in the evening. Whatever it is that draws two people back together, my point is you learn nothing about this from studying rotten relationships. Here's the thing, folks. Excellence isn't the opposite of failure. As the president said yesterday, yes, we can study what's wrong, but I don't know whether you've heard this. He almost immediately said, but you know what else we do? We do after-action reviews to study what works. Excellence has its own pattern. You can't infer what excellence looks like from studying failure. If you want to learn a lot about failure, study failure. If you want to learn a lot about disease, study disease. If you want to learn a lot about depression, study depression. Just don't imagine it will tell you anything about joy. It won't. Excellence has its own pattern. All of us in this room, as Tara said, so much change is going on, but all of you in this room have to be, along with me, students of excellence. Because only by studying excellence will you actually understand what its configurations are. Now, if you take a free-thinking, student of excellence approach to the world of work, you discover that an awful lot of things that we believe to be true just aren't. And I know it looks like Albert Einstein here, but as Mark Twain said, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Well, there's an awful lot of stuff about the world of talent that we know for sure that just ain't so. We first took this and we applied this, myself and my colleague, Ashley Goodall, who runs talent for a really big chunk of Cisco. Do we have any Cisco folks in the house? There we go. So Cisco, 70,000 people and 70,000 more contractors. I mean, hardware, software, global. It's kind of the future of talent. So wanted to work with Ashley on what is the, like you, as a practitioner in the world of talent. So we turned to HBR and they said, could you take this free-thinking, research-based approach, this student of excellence approach to performance reviews? Because we know those are going really well. And almost all performance reviews are based upon the idea that we know for sure that if we give people enough training and we give people the right technology, they become, if they really work with using that technology, they can become the most reliable raters of other people's performance and potential. How many of you, raise your hands if you work in any kind of company where you've ever been rated in your performance review? Who's got a rating? Have you got a rating? Most of you have. But one of those ratings where if you're really good, you're a 5, if you're less good, you're a 4, unless your company's run out of 4s, in which case you're a 3. Sorry, we don't have any 4s left. Run out of 4s. Next year we'll probably have a few more. This year you're a 3. Love you, but you're a 3. So we took this and we applied it to the performance review because what we know for sure is that, gosh, people can be reliable raters of other people. But actually it turns out that that just ain't true. It turns out when I rate you on something, performance or potential, most of the ratings that I rate you on, hi by the way, hi, waving, still awake, which is great. When I rate you on anything, performance, potential, strategic thinking, most of the variation in my rating is a function of me, not you. Which is a problem because we pay you, promote you, and train you, develop you, as though my rating of you reflects you, and it doesn't. It reflects me, which is annoying for most of us in this area. So we try to remove this by creating ever more detailed performance reviews and so on. And it turns out the more complicated we make the rating scales, the more behaviorally anchored they are. And I know this is one of those things that some of you know for sure, but it just ain't true. The more detailed we make them, the bigger this rating effect becomes. We now know that when I rate you on something, 61 to 62% of the variance of my rating of you is a function of me, not of you. And it works like this. When I rate you on something, let's say it's 5, I don't know, attributes or something, each with a behavioral anchor or 2 in there, there's a pattern to my ratings. I skew here, and then you're low here, and you're high here. When I then look at you, the pattern should change because I'm looking at a different human being. And then when I look at you, the pattern should change again because you're a different human being. This rating system is presumably a window that allows me to see you. Here's the thing, folks. It doesn't change. My pattern of rating moves with me. We can see it. Tara was saying, let's be data fluent in the world of talent. My pattern moves with me. It's called an idiosyncratic rater effect. I have an idiosyncratic pattern to my ratings. I might be a really broad rater that uses the entire scale. I might be a super little tight rater in the middle. I might be skewed way to the right and just be really generous. Or I might be a super tough rater and skewed to the left. I don't know. And this isn't a function of my race or my gender or my age. I'm not talking about unconscious rater bias in terms of race and gender and age. I'm talking about an idiosyncratic pattern of ratings that I'm singularly unaware about. And yet it moves with me, which means that 61 to 62% of my rating of you and you and you reflects me, not you and you and you. Now some will say, oh, that's okay. Well, I know your data's bad, but we'll add it to more people. We'll take 6 other raters. We'll do a 360. Because although your data is bad, when we add more bad data to more bad data, at some point it magically turns into good data. Wow, there it is. No. For those of you that know data, if there is a systematic error to the data, it doesn't turn into good data after you've added a bunch together. It's like if your thermometer is broken, and yours is broken, and yours is broken, adding a bunch of broken thermometers readings together doesn't turn it into the right temperature. It's broken. So here we got a problem where now look, 3 years ago no one cared. Because you took these 360 data, or you took your ratings data and you put it in a drawer and you forgot about it. Today, we live in as Tara's saying, we live in a database world where we put all this data into a human capital management system and it lives with you forever. So we wrote this piece, HBR basically saying, all our data is bad. All our data is systematically bad about something called, what should we call it, performance. It's all bad. And it's not irrelevant. Your ratings on the stuff that I give you, or maybe that we've aggregated across your peers and your direct reports, turns into stuff that will affect the way you get paid, trained, developed. Maybe the way you get terminated. All sorts of things that actually mediate your world of work comes from something that is flawed. Okay, that's a huge problem for us. So we wrote this piece, and then it became, I guess it just got a ton of traction. It became the most downloaded piece in 2016, and I guess according to Person by Deloitte, 84% of companies, I don't know whether it's a function of this, but I'm now trying to redo their entire approach to performance, because as Tara said, if we're going to move into a database world, we better know the difference, not between big data and small data, but the difference between good data and bad data. We gotta know that. So they came back, HBR came back to us after this and went, Could you take that free-thinking, student of excellence approach and apply it to the entire world of work, culture, learning, leadership? Could you take it and apply it to as much as you could see? And when you do that, folks, you find that, going back to Twain, an awful lot of what we know for sure just ain't so. Now, I don't know what you would find. If you took this approach, I don't know what you would find. We found a number of, what would you call them? Misconceptions, misunderstandings, myths. We didn't call them those because they're pushed at you really hard, almost as though someone has an agenda. We called them lies. It's hard, for those of you that run teams, it's hard to run a team. As Tara described, there's all sorts of stuff that's coming down the pike that's going to force you to change. It's really hard to stay on top of talent, both here domestically in the US and around the world. We've got to try and stay on top of it. Boy, it's just really hard when you're being fed a bunch of lies about the way that people really work. How many lies in a pack? Well, 9, as it happens. Here are 9. Look, you may find others. But I'm gonna show you these 9 lies. Now, I warn you, a number of these lies you're gonna just be sure are so. I promise I'm gonna put them up, and there's gonna be some of you like, that's true. So I warn you, but here are the 9. You ready? Yeah. 9 lies about work. A free-thinking leader's guide to the real